They might be a little above average, but probably not like, like they might hit 6 feet even, but I don't think much more than that. So
genetics are weird.
Right. Yeah, I mean,
I don't know if what I said is actually true. If that's how it works, they might just inherit. One might be really short, one might be really tall because they got more genes from one than the other or something. I don't know.
Yeah,
well, some of that and nutrition goes into it obviously as well, and I mentioned that because like for whatever reason the oldest does not eat the way we would like him to, and his younger brother does. And so one of the things that we've been telling him is like, if you want to keep being the bigger brother, which will matter to you more later because you don't understand right now, like the guys who like their younger brother is bigger than the older brother, like that really upsets the power dynamic when you're kids. So, that can be problematic, but yeah, like it's not necessarily science, but like as a rule of thumb, like if you take their height when they're 2 and double it, I think is what it is. That's supposed to be what their maximum height is supposed to be around, if I'm remembering right. Obviously, it's been a while since we've had a 2-year-old, been a couple of years, but yeah, so he should come out right around 6 feet, I think. And then, his brother's not there yet, but his brother is like almost as big as he is. He's just a baby, he's only a little over 1 now. So, but
interesting. Never heard that one before.
Yeah, there you go. So I didn't get the other one out before we were on the air, so that might be pushing boundaries a little bit. But it's nice to know that women are kind of like goldfish tanks too. They can only grow so big. Anyway, so had to go there. Yeah, because everybody was like, "Oh my God, your babies are going to be like 25 pounds. What's wrong with you?" And yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So, do we want to lead with the current events, or do we want to talk about more fun things first?
I mean, the current events are pretty fun.
Yeah, fucking hilarious.
Did you buy in? Are you holding?
I didn't even hear about it until it was way too expensive to be a part of the fun.
Yeah, see, and for me, like I heard about it decently well in advance. Like I think the shares were still like $40 or $50 a piece, right? And
I would have gotten them like for one.
Yeah, now in hindsight, it's like whatever. But even still, like these guys think that they're going to get it to 1,000, so it's still around 300, 340 the last time I saw. So if you have been living under a rock, for the last week, then don't go buy GameStop, but watch it as it goes up and down every day. So.
Or do buy GameStop just to screw over people you don't like.
Right. Yeah. I mean,
don't buy GameStop by accident, though. That would be a mistake.
Yeah, right. What I've been telling people is that stocks really do follow some of the same rules as gambling. Only play with money you can afford to lose. Yes. Okay. So yeah, like nobody should be like, oh shit, there goes my rent money, like at any point.
You'd think those hedge fund managers would get that considering it's their day job.
Yes, there's plenty of like turning that around on people. But I mean, that's been coming out since 2008. And since the COVID thing as well, it's like, why are these guys getting bailouts and money? They should have savings to cover this. That's what everybody else gets told. They shouldn't have done something
quite so risky. That was the inherent thing about stock markets. Always like it's a risk, but it can pay off.
The problem is shorting it to 120% or more isn't risky. It's fucking stupid. Because first of all, like, okay, yeah, sure. If it works out, then it was risky and you were smart and whatever. Mm-hmm. But shorting it to 120% was a goddamn flare. And why only one guy noticed it, or at least that's what they're saying, right? The one Redditor, deep fucking value. Like they put it all on him. But like if you look at what the brokers are doing, some of the bigger brokers caught on to it too, because that's their day job. And so they're the ones not screaming about going insolvent because they're riding that wave. Like one dude, he's got like 50,000 something shares, but there are millions in play. So he's just a tiny little drop in the bucket. And even the Wall Street Bets guys, they're getting saddled with all the blame and everything. But it's the brokers that are doing this as well. Like I one of the ones that I saw was BlackRock. So them and I don't know. There were a few others. I'd be surprised if Goldman Sachs isn't writing this one way or another.
Right. The reasoning that I saw, not that I know anything of like why shorting at 140% is sometimes okay, is because they're not all due at the same time. are not supposed to be all due at the same time. So like 60% might be due all at the one day, and then like the rest of it due at another day. That's why you can theoretically do it at over 100%. But if they are all due at a really short window, you're fucked.
Right. Now, that little nugget I didn't know. And so that, everybody's been talking about the 120% number, but that does make it make more sense, right? They're trying to double dip, right? They're trying to say, okay, I'm going to make, X amount of dollars when it drops this far, and then I'm going to make even more when it drops even further. And, but the idea of the short anyways, like there isn't anything that I can think of materially that makes it make sense, right? There's no other, you can't say, well, I'm gonna pay, like I'm gonna do that for any kind of material good or anything tangible that makes any kind of sense. Like this is a construct of the stock market, which is a construct in and of itself anyway. And that's what people are starting to get wise to. They're like, wait a minute, it's all fake? Yeah, it always has been. That's what I've been telling people. It's driven by psychology.
Are you referencing the meme on purpose there? Or?
Of course.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure.
I'm with it. Yeah. So until I'm not, and then it'll happen to you. But yeah,
it will happen to you.
Like it's a bad example, but it's a powerful example, and not one that a lot of people were talking about. So I apologize in advance if this does trigger anybody, but the example that I use, and the reason why this isn't a surprise to me, is because I've known this since at least 9/11. Okay. And the reason why I bring that up is because you have two examples that are very starkly contrasted, right? First of all, two giant buildings came tumbling down in one of the worst terrorist attacks the country's ever seen, right? Obviously, the stock market's going to tank. That makes sense to us because visceral things happen. People died, terrorist attacks, we're going to war, uncertainty in the market. Those are all things that normal people can grab a hold of. What you don't grab a hold of is the fact that within a few days of that, there was a tanker that exploded in the harbor. And nobody remembers this, and it doesn't matter because it was a blip, right? But what happened is it sent the stock market into a double dip. And that's when it made it clear to me that this is not being driven by visceral things. This is being driven by fear. Everybody was afraid that there was going to be a follow-up attack. So they sold again, causing the market to dip again, meaning that it's being driven by fear and emotion, not by anything tangible, because that tanker didn't hurt anything. And if it did, it hurt that one company. They lost their product, whatever. But it certainly didn't affect, tech stocks or whatever else was being sold that day. And so now people are seeing that, the idea of the short, as I understand it, is the fact that, you do this shell game when the stock is overvalued, which, I say that and use air quotes because it's a joke that GameStop was overvalued, right? That GameStop wasn't overvalued. GameStop was just the sacrificial lamb that they thought they could squeeze blood out of. Extra money. No one's going to miss GameStop because GameStop is already on the fence anyway. So we're just
actually because I was reading up about all this, that it might actually even be it's too expensive now, but because of the whole thing. But they were getting a pretty competent CEO in, I think, like someone who's actually got a really good track record.
Right.
That might be able to turn the ship around.
I mean, that's why Deep Fucking Value did his thing, and I'm not just swearing. That's his username. So as much as I love saying fucking, but that was his thing. Is like he knew this since like June or July or something like that. Is that basically he saw what was coming and had even made posts about it like the year before, I think, right? So like this had been telegraphed in some way that this guy got wind of, and then they still went ahead and they still shorted the stocks, even though GameStop was turning things around. And so that's why, Wall Street Bets, if you're familiar with or not familiar with the organization, the what's the word I want?
Subreddit.
There you go. Community Works. Community is more like what I was looking for. He did a YOLO. He put all of his money on this stock and is going to let it ride as long as he can. And I think he did the smart thing. He got out a percentage, right? He made like $13 million and then said, cool, I'm going to let the rest of it ride, which is about what I would have done.
I do the same when I bet on esports sometimes, mostly for the sweat, right? So it's more interesting to watch. But then if it actually goes well, I usually take out what I put in plus a little extra, and then I just ride the rest until it's gone.
And that's the smart way to do it, is like you go in with money you can afford to lose. When you make a little bit money, you pull either some of that out, or, you just put it in, you play with that money, and I mean, that I was telling people like a week ago when this first started up, was like, dude needs to get out, like, in this, it's a smart thing to do, right? Like, it's great that this is a meme and whatever, but like when he hit like $6 million would have been enough for me to be out, and now he's like $50 million, and it's like, look, my dude, like, without living the quote unquote rich life and buying yachts and shit, I don't know how to spend $50 million unless I'm going to space or I'm buying a yacht. So $50 million is well more than enough to take care of it. Like, I think if I lived frugally and I invested smartly, I could make $3 million ride. And that's something I've been telling people for a while, like that would be my retirement goal. So, the fact that he's got like $13 million, if he's got that in cash, then, if he's smart, which obviously he's got some smarts, as well as some luck, maybe, he can let the rest of it ride. And if it hits 1,000, he might just make himself, 100 millionaire or more, easily. So
yeah, I mean,
I'm sad that I missed the boat. So
I just heard about it way too late.
I mean, if I had known at a certain point, I would have probably been willing just to throw away money for the meme.
Right?
Yeah.
Come on, Andreas, the government gives you money, my dude. So take some of that money that the government gives you, invest it in the stock market. What my buddy was saying on Wednesday is that he thinks, or he read an analysis, that a lot of the people that are writing it in Wall Street Bets, they just put in their $600 stimulus check. Right. So in a lot of ways, they can thank the government, because $600 is not going to pay most people's rent for a single month. So they might as well,
I did enjoy people basically saying, okay, so now the government's going to give out $1,400 checks again, right? To bring it up to the $2,000 checks that people felt that they were promised. And they're going to do the same thing and fuck it over even more.
Right. Probably. So.
Yeah. And I mean, some of the funny thing is that, to me, like, people are just following the advice that they've kind of been told by people of like, if you hold money, you're losing it. But so you invest it and you make money. And now the hedge fund are crying.
It's not investment advice, but other than that, yes. So we're not giving any financial advice.
No, God, no. But
also
it's just
hold. No. No, but yeah, and that's what's funny, like the tweets and the memes, the whole like, well, you poor people should just invest your money. Wait, no, stop. Yeah. Not like that.
I mean,
or the fucking billionaire who's like, you're just attacking, rich people. The idea that everybody gets their fair share is bullshit. I'm like, oh, so you said the quiet part out loud, because we've known that. Anybody progressive or further left than that has known that for well over a decade. They've known that since 2008, since you were fucking drinking champagne over the the Occupy Wall Street movement, right? Everybody who's been paying attention knows that. But now we have the billionaires actually saying it. And so now, if you still don't believe that there's class warfare, if you still don't believe you got to eat the rich, like, the only thing that might save them at this point is if AOC and the SEC get involved and actually sanction some of these companies like Robinhood, who basically shut down trading on specific stocks for specific people, which has got to be highly illegal.
Right. So I think what they did, they shut down buying any stock. You could only sell.
Right.
Which is market manipulation.
Yes, that's illegal as far as I know.
Which is the thing Wall Street Bets was accused of, So.
Right. And then once they allowed, okay, you can buy, but only buy one share per account instead of just buy as much as you want, which I think continues it.
Yeah, it's still terrible. And then there was a tweet, unverified, whatever, but saying that for their employees, they basically gave them like $40 DoorDash gift cards to like appease them, or whatever. Cause like they started having a bunch of backlash, like, wait a minute, this is not okay. And isn't this against like the entire idea of us as a company anyway?
Right.
And so they're like, oh, you've got a good point. Here is a $40 gift card. Oh, well, I'll just, shut up then.
He named Robinhood.
I mentioned that to my friends yesterday when I saw it. I was like, so imagine just like really just having the company you work for do something that you find morally apprehensive, and they go like, you know what, here's $40
right
for food.
Right.
Like, here, this will appease your morals.
Well, and like reframe it again. Like this might be a little extremist, whatever, you know. Some of you conservative minds might have a tough time with this, right? So just to get it out there, I'm more of a moderate. I do lean conservative, but I'm not fucking blind, my dude. You have a moral objection to what's going on about the way your company is named, what it's supposed to represent, and how it's conducting its business. They gave you $40 for food. Like, if that isn't the most brain dead, like poor people like food type of mentality, that is like, talk about breads and circuses, right?
Yes.
Like, that's literally like, oh, you guys are upset, would food help? You know, fucking how about you pay them so that they don't have to worry about food, right? Like, even the convenience of DoorDash, because it's as much a service as it is the food, right? But like, come on, you know, like, if you thought you were going to buy them out in some way, their morals, a $40 gift card for food was like the least, you know, it was like the least effort you could have done. So
I enjoyed the memes of people calling Robin Hood Sheriff of Nottingham now.
I haven't seen those yet, so apparently I need to go on Reddit.
I've seen them where they're like
saw them on Twitter.
Oh,
there you go.
It's like it was they go like off to Robin Hood and put off the mask. It's like, it wasn't Robin Hood, it was Citadel all along.
Nice, yeah.
It's also just because, you know, really just it hurts a lot more because of their marketing, right? They're like, yeah, democratize,
right?
You know, finance, basically, like everybody can do it. And then it's just like, oh, everybody's doing it. We don't like they're doing this.
Right. Well, what started to come out, at least from my perspective, I'm sure it's been out there before, but now it has a megaphone, right? Is that part of Robinhood's business model is giving tips to hedge funds based off of the trades that their people are doing. So they've basically been crowdsourcing for hedge funds a little bit, is what it sounded like. And so basically, you know, they would be like, oh, everybody seems to be buying the stock or whatever. And so, like, I had seen some claims go as far as like Robinhood would delay some of those trades, right? That the hedge funds would get priority, or there would be some kind of delay in there. And then they would turn around and sell legal. The information to, and it's just like, oh man, you know. And what's crazy to me is like, even after this week, after all the information, like, I'm not even like, I like the idea of stocks. I like the idea of making money just by sitting here and watching line charts go up and down. I know I'm oversimplifying, whatever, because I'm ignorant, right? That's part of why I didn't buy in sooner, is because I wouldn't know what to do with an option if I had one,
right.
You know? And so, but then the people that are still like, oh, I tried to buy like whatever cryptocurrency through Robinhood and they're fucking me over. It's like, yeah, my dude, we're a week into Robinhood's the bad guys. Why are you still working with them? Like, I'd understand not being able to get your money out, right, or something like that. But why are you still trying to people? Yeah,
like
exactly.
People have been trying to close their accounts, and maybe some amount of it legitimate, of like there's like a 3 or 5 day hold just to make sure that shit isn't weird, but it also seems suspiciously extended, or people not able to move their accounts to other things. And so I think people are being told now just to open a new account on a different app and leave the money there on Robinhood until later.
Right.
Or all of the 100,000 reviews got removed from Google.
Yeah, that's like I think that's the first time that's ever happened. Right? They got like legit review bombed, like by angry customers. Okay, I'm gonna go on a limb and say there was probably some bots in there, but those bots were probably made by actual real angry people and not Russians or something.
Right. Yeah, it's tough. I mean, they were obviously being brigaded, but there's a difference between, you know, like you did something that we don't like and you pissed off a guy who's got a following, and there's legitimate, you know, you're fucking with like SEC regulations and you're fucking with people's money and their livelihoods and shit, and you fucked a lot of people. So, you know, it like, yes, almost certainly some of those 100,000 weren't legitimate, but I wouldn't say a significant margin of them. I wouldn't say half. I wouldn't say 25%. You know, maybe 25%, but like they fucked up in a big way. So that's probably largely legitimate. It's not like it was out of the blue, right? You know, so it does technically qualify as brigading and all of that shit, but it's because you cheesed off a lot of people. So, you know, like, what did you think was going to happen? You know,
I would be curious if someone went was able to go through and review them, how many of them like could be linked to verified accounts of like, you're holding my money and not giving it back. You're not allowing me to do the thing I want to do. And all of those very valid illegal things that they're doing versus people just brigading and jumping on the bandwagon. I mean, yes, those might be deserve to be removed, but someone has to actually review them. And I kind of doubt Google did that considering how fast they did it.
Right. And that was the thing too, like the Google apologists were like, it was probably done automatically by a bot or something like that, which is like,
Maybe
okay,
they shouldn't do that automatically then.
Right. So yeah, it's like I said, it's, you know, it's difficult for, I wouldn't see the line of code that would differentiate this heuristically, right? That does take a person. Maybe they should have a person do additional review, right? Before you back that shit up, is that, you know, let's have people validate what the bots are doing. So I can't help you with your game right now, buddy.
Important things.
It's gotta help.
Yeah, it's when the child needs help in a video game. I mean, what else can you do?
When you got when you can show off to your child and you can beat the thing in the video game.
Yeah,
you have to do it.
I mean, it's just as important as helping with homework.
Yeah,
well, in his case, he can't. He's 5 and he can't really read yet. We're working with him on his letters. He's starting to get some of that recognition, but he's playing Breath of the Wild.
Video games is a good way to learn to read. Actually, I think I learned to read by watching TV.
Well, yeah, we do that. Khan Academy, Sesame Street, like we're exposing him to stuff. We work with him on his writing and whatnot. But yeah, his now 2 favorite times are during the podcast and while I'm napping. So yeah, usually like I'm like I lay down with the baby usually twice a day to give him a nap, and usually right after I've fallen asleep, he's like, "Oh, I need help fighting a Lionel, or you know, reading this mission. They've got a mission for me." That's what this one was, and I was like, "Yeah, sorry, I'll help you later."
What is he playing?
Breath of the Wild. So
I want you know I got a Switch specifically for that game, and I still haven't gotten the game because it's so old that I was like, I want to find it on sale. Surely you cannot find it on sale.
You can't. No, it's not going to go on sale.
We got like a second copy for like $40 or something like that off of Amazon, I think. But yeah, no, it's definitely worth it. But that's why it's still, you know, full price, is because people are paying full price for it.
Yes, so. Yeah. Maybe I'm trying to pick it up on Facebook used, and just like, but they disappear so fast. They're usually and they're only how much is that in dollars? Let's say they're like $15 cheaper, so that's okay. I'm like, yeah, fine, but they're always gone.
Right, because there's 10,000 other people like you waiting to buy them. So.
I think so.
It's market manipulation. Those motherfuckers. No, sorry.
I need to make like a Python script or something. That can just search Facebook Marketplace and send me a ping when a new Breath of the Wild shows up.
Right.
But it is actually with the helping your kid in this case just by reading a mission. But like, for example, I don't remember this, but my brother, who's 10 years younger than me, we play games together almost every day. He said like he still remembers. I don't know what game, some PlayStation game. I think Spider-Man 2, the movie game or something. And there was a boss he couldn't beat. He was like, he asked me for help, and I just went, yeah, and I apparently, and he's like, he still remembers that.
See, it's funny because I'm the opposite side of that. I'd be more like your brother. Like, yes, I helped you beat it, but I definitely remembered it. Maybe because I'm going to hold it over you, but no. As much as anything, like one of my favorite moments was Ocarina of Time, back on the N64, and we would babysit my cousins, and there's only a couple year difference, but like both parents worked and my mom would stay at home. So they'd come over and, you know, we'd be grounded for whatever reason and whatever, but my cousin would come over with her printed out walkthroughs, and she would play through like the water temple. Well, she gets through the water temple. I haven't played, I don't think 2 minutes of this game, if that. And she gets to Shadow Link, and, you know, she just couldn't fight him. And I'm just kind of watching, and it was like, let me try. I think I can beat him, you know. But like, those are the gaming memories that you grew up with, right? Is like when you get stuck with those hard bosses. And, you know, it's something we've been trying to teach our boy, is that, you know, like he gets stuck and he gets frustrated, and, you know, maybe he'll try it 3 times, maybe, you know, but usually he fails the first time, and has a big meltdown and whatever. And so, it's also life lessons, right? It's like, look, my dude, there's very few things you're going to be good at the first time. Even I'm not good at something the first time that I try it. And if I am, it's probably because I've done a dozen other things like it, and so we've been pushing him to like, okay, you got to figure it out. You got to try it again. And like, when he finally got to the point where he had the gear to fight the Lionels and everything like that, I did the first, 2 or 3 maybe, and I'm sloppy. I'm not, like I don't have all the jumping down and all the maneuvering that you could do. But, I did the first couple, and then I was like, okay, from now on, if you want to do it, you're going to have to figure it out. I'll tell you the strategy, like go get the durian fruits, go get the food, cook the food. That's something he still doesn't do. Like he's only just like, he's probably got like a billion hours in the game, and he's just now getting to the idea like, wait a minute, if I cook the food I get more health back. But between that and pushing him, like he doesn't ask us for help to fight any of the fights anymore. Like he just this week and the last week he's been going through some of the divine beasts by himself, and like because of his age group, he's watching YouTubers, and he just commits that shit to memory. And so he watches Zebra Gamer as one of the main ones, and then he watches Kid City. And those partially because those are available through some like kid-friendly apps that we have on a Roku and whatnot. And he'll just watch them, do whatever game, and then be like, oh, I watched so-and-so play this game, and now I know everything about it. And that's the funny shit too, is like when your 5-year-old is like, I know a whole lot about Zelda. I'm like, yeah, okay, but like I'm not going to argue with you because I'm arguing with a child. However, like I beat the game like 2 months ago, and you're still catching up. So
you get him into Minecraft or something, because of the
yeah,
problem solving there too.
We have a Minecraft forum, but part of it is like, because he's so young, we don't let him loose on the internet. And I haven't gotten to the point where I'm running it like locally yet, where I would play with him, because that's the only way I'm going to get into Minecraft at this point. And then the real one is like, there's a bunch of videos about Kid City playing Fortnite. So that's the one that he wants to do, because Fortnite has all the skins. And so he's like, oh, I could be Batman, or I could be whoever, and all of this stuff. Or now he's been watching Roblox, I guess, is Minecraft 2.0, where they've got a billion skins as well, where, you can play as Spider-Man, whatever. So.
I mean, skins, man. Even I fall victim to that.
It depends. Like, yeah, I'm a collector and a nerd, so yeah, a double whammy there. But like, I definitely had to put my foot down with some of the miniatures, like, because I wasn't using them. And then especially the Funko Pops, like anymore, the only Funko Pops I get are because people are like, oh, I saw this and I thought of you. And I'm like, okay, well, that's nice. And I'll find some room on my shelf. But otherwise I was like, I'm gonna be the Beanie Baby kids, right? Like if I buy all the Funko Pops that I want, I'm gonna be like, okay, so it's a divorce now. Which Funko Pops are yours? Like
I want Funko Pops, man.
I have way too many.
It's just, they're so like I can't get myself to buy them because they're too expensive.
Yeah. Well, and for us, they're not, they're like $10-15, which is, a little spendy or whatever.
I think
but it's the fact that they're like
double here or something.
Yeah, it could be. But they're just completely non-functional, right? They're just completely aesthetic, and I'm not really a aesthetic guy. Have you noticed my walls? Like I might eventually get some of the art up and whatever, but
like, this one's actually pretty cheap. I can get a Baby Yoda for what's that in dollars?
Just keep that conversion table up.
I
always.
know, right? Like
$19.
They've got to have extensions. So
$19 for a little Baby Yoda. Oh my god!
Right? Yeah. Well, especially if you get into the idea that he's half the material, so you're paying $20, and he's even cheaper to make. So.
All the like this one's pretty cheap, and this one's pretty cheap. The rest of them are $40 or more.
Yeah, that's crazy.
On these Funkos.
I think, yeah, like you can spend 20, 25, like assuming you find it in the store, right? 20, 25 on the big ones, right? Like there's like Giant Man or Ultron or whatever that are like the double sized ones. And some of those I've been tempted to.
I don't know if these are double sized or something since they're so more expensive.
No, probably not. I mean, like if you don't know, because the last I looked anyways, there were few of those. They were obviously building more, but like I might be I think I've been tempted to get like an Ultron or a Sentinel at one point because I think it'd be fun to like set them up because I'm a nerd and a child at heart. But yeah, like at the end of the day, I mean, shit, dude, I've got, these stupid, the Metal Earth, like model ships and shit that I'm not putting together. And, there's so much nerd shit that I have because, it's almost expected as part of the culture. But, like I've got a Boba Fett helmet, I think, out of Legos that I got for Christmas that I think last Christmas actually, or my birthday last year, that it's like still in the box and we had to move from Florida in the box, so.
I mean, I've finally started to actually nest is what my roommates called it. I actually put up stuff on the walls and
right.
And I want to make something out of my room.
How long have you been here at this place?
8 years or something.
Yeah, as long as we've known you've had the same background.
Right.
You did put up shelves. You can't see the shelves.
Actually, I've also moved like 2 times in the room. Like I used to sit over here, and then I used to sit here, and now I sit here. So I sit like so. There's been some angles. But like I got like a bookshelf that you can't see, and there's some shelves there you can't see, and a blower for my computer that you can't see. But I know, for example, I have some family friends. They used to have like a lot of Star Wars Lego, and they're like starting to unload it. So it's like, if you find some more of that Star Wars Lego you want to get rid of, I'll put it together and put it up here.
Right.
Because that's pretty neat. They have a whole. I don't think they'll ever get rid of that because like I think their grown son who still lives there. He's like he likes it a lot. So they have a full Death Star and it's so cool.
You really shouldn't get rid of Lego, right? Like getting rid of Lego is usually mom's decision because she doesn't get it and you're too old for that shit, right? But like for anybody else, like especially the Star Wars ones,
you just reminded me of where all my comic books and Pokemon cards went. And you know how much those Pokemon cards? Do you know how much those? I had 3 original Charizards, Blastoids, and the green one. I can't remember.
You found the button.
Venusaur. Right.
Yeah. 3 are in foil. You know how much? No.
Yeah. When I got a little old to worry about the Pokemon cards, like I almost never played them anyway, right? It was just one more thing for me to collect. But I was in my late teens, early 20s and gave those down to my brother. But yeah, like I can't imagine. I didn't have a ton, but like by today's standards, maybe because we had like the promo Mews from like the original movie and things like that. So, I can imagine. But at least
me to give it to my sister. And then she just gave it away or something.
Yeah, that feels even worse.
Yeah, so.
The same with my original Game Boy and original Game Boy games.
We might still have our Game Boy Colors somewhere, but yeah.
So I had the original. I got it from my stepdad. Like the first Game Boy. I had that with like Super Mario and Tetris, and man, I played on that a lot.
Yeah. Yeah, we played Tetris, but we were late to the Game Boy thing, so ours were colors with the backlight built in. So. Yeah.
No backlight. I think I went the original, and then color came, and then another one came, and then one more, and then backlight came.
Right.
There was like a long time with no backlight.
Right.
So like when you were sitting there in the car on the way home from somewhere, and there's like you just have to pray for the street light as you drive. See, can I still play?
Right. Yeah. I think we did a lot of road trips, so I think that was one of the things my parents like splurged on because they were like, if we give them these things, they'll just like leave us alone for 8 hours at a time, right? So
8 hours of peace and quiet. Can you really put a price on that? And they were both like, no,
yeah,
that sounds like a good deal.
We're trying to condition the boy, so obviously he can't read the quest. So once he gets to reading, then he'll be good. Part of the problem though is like he doesn't have an internal monologue. So like even if you're playing like next to him, he just talks the entire time, and he's like, "Oh, so the other day I was watching this thing and giraffe, blah blah blah," or "Hey, I'm fighting this guy, and oh man, that was a powerful attack," and blah blah blah. And I was like, "Look, dude, I can't listen to your game and what I'm doing, like." And that it's funny too because like sometimes he'll help and you have to be like, no, really, I can't help you, I'm doing this one thing right now. And then be like, no, really, I've told you 3 times now because he's 5, and it's like, I can't help you. He's like, oh, I wasn't talking to you, I'm just talking now. It's like, oh my god, no, dude, stop. So yeah,
I like that. I like how she's like, oh, I'm not talking, I'm just talking.
Right.
Just going.
Yep. And unfortunately,
like
unfortunately, I've looked it up. So there doesn't seem to be a lot of good science on internal monologues, and they're not sure that it can be taught. It might just be a thing that you have. So that sucks.
As I've worked with a guy that was almost exactly like that. He would just talk to the wall because he just wanted to talk. He'd happily talk to a person, but he didn't care if they responded.
Right.
I don't know if that's a thing that ever like you grow out of.
Yeah, I gotta admit it's probably just desserts for me a little bit because I am that guy sometimes. Like it's funny because I worked with a guy who was like wouldn't talk, and then when I'm working sometimes it helps to talk through
right.
just to keep my brain going if I'm doing something repetitive.
That's just something like talking to a duck. It was like you problem solve while you explain it to someone even if it's not a real person.
That's a thing. That's a separate thing that I'm thinking. But like that's part of why I was able to get into Dresden is because I needed something to activate the brain with the kind of work that I was doing. But it was funny too because people were like, "Oh my God, Jason never says anything, blah blah blah, all this other stuff." And it's like, dude, I know tons about his life. Have you ever talked to him? Like he responds just fine. You just got to ask him questions, So poor guy got sat next to me though. But.
So that's why you do so much, because she's like, "Hey, Jason. So, how should I?"
Right? Yeah, it's like invite him out sometime. He loves laser tag. He does Krav Maga. Like, don't piss him off. He's kind of scary. So
Krav Maga was fun. I did a little bit of that briefly.
Yeah. I did a couple of sessions. I did one of Aikido. I should do more, but like that requires leaving the house and like I would love to do something like that right now, but apocalypse,
right.
So,
The only reason we were able to do it is so we're living at the university housing and they offered it for some reason. They just had I guess someone who was kind of involved was Israeli and she wanted to be taught Krav Maga, and so she found someone and he came like every week. It's like, okay, well, it's free, it's right there, I'm fine, I'll do it.
Right.
I heard it's kind of fun. It's like the most brutal martial arts that's just designed to incapacitate someone in the most brutal fashion possible.
Yeah, they don't
kind of fun.
They don't fuck around, like
they really don't fuck around.
Yeah. Well, one of my favorite sessions, was like, okay, here's a scenario like you're at a bar and there's 3 people about to attack you. So you're going to break his nose, his arm, and then you're going to go grab this bar stool and hit that guy with it, and it's just like, cool. I can get down with that, because it's an amalgam of a lot of other martial arts as well. Right. Like they've got their kicks, they'll do their holds and everything like that if it helps them towards their end goal, whereas like Aikido by contrast is how to escape holds, how to do wrist locks and some various other things in a lot of roles, because that helps you escape shit, and it's a much more defensively minded, certainly in comparison. But since I've done a little bit of both, my uncle had spent a ton of time in Aikido, and so he would show us, sometimes to us and sometimes he would show us how to do it. But the other good thing about Aikido is that it's much more effective as a small person, right? Like if you because it uses economy of motion and it uses people's physics against themselves, like it's much more effective for a small person. It works just fine for big people, but big people also can throw kicks and punches. Like if you wind up and get a 30-foot running head start and like just sock your husband right in the gut, he's gonna laugh it off. Whereas like if you flip him over with Aikido, he's gonna be like, "What the fuck just happened?" So
that's why like all of the like arm bars and holds and triangles, like those matter because they hurt. Like you can do a very little amount of force on the right spot to make a very large person hurt and stop.
Yeah. Yeah, I had a book that my dad had, and I couldn't get into, like, you're not learning martial arts from a book. Like maybe there's a special kind of person who can, but it's like supplemental material. But what was good is that each chapter started out with like quotes from the students. And one of my favorite ones was like a 6 foot something. He worked in corrections, like so a corrections officer fighting against an older lady, like literally 70s or whatever. And he was like, so we were practicing these throws, and she threw me so hard so long that I kissed the ground when I landed because she's like half his size and an old lady and threw it this huge corrections officer like across the mat, and this is like, yeah, I mean, so there's a little bit of fantasy in there, but like go watch a class if you're not sure, because they can definitely do the things that they talk about,
if there's a martial arts I always found very compelling, but as I understand, it's also just not very good. It's I just had the name in my head. What the fuck just happened? It's Wing Chun. That's how I think I say it. Wing Chun, which was what Bruce Lee master taught him, and then he made it into something more usable.
Right.
But if you ever watched, I don't know, the movies Ip Man, for example, it's a super good-looking martial art, but as I understand it, not that effective compared to the more popular martial arts. Just like karate is not that effective in, for example, in mixed martial arts. Like you can't really get away with a lot of kicks. You have to be good at wrestling.
It kind of depends, because like if you get into it, certainly like their philosophies and their move sets are geared to certain scenarios, right? Like, judo is really good for wrestling, and a lot of the martial arts obviously give you an edge against the untrained combatants, right? Like if you're dealing with a surly drunk or just some asshole, right? Like almost any martial art will do, but when you start, okay, the karate guy's going to fight the Brazilian jiu-jitsu guy.
The karate guy probably not going to have a fun time.
Nope.
Right. So
if that's the only thing that he can do.
Right. And that's some of it too. I mean, certainly the MMA guys, fight in several arts usually, right? Like
it's usually very Brazilian jiu-jitsu based, and then other things.
Right. So.
But yeah.
I have no idea how we got here, but we haven't stopped talking the whole time, so it must be good.
Yeah, it's been fun. Good energy. We're all very peppy today.
Right. Yeah. Coffee.
So I caught up on WandaVision today. Say that's awesome.
Spoilers.
Episode 4 was great
because the episode just came out yesterday. But yeah, no, it's been good. Now's probably a good time to start getting into it if you don't like slow burns, because the first 3 episodes you aren't getting your normal Marvel flavor out of it. Like if you're into mysteries, if you're into creepy, there are definitely moments for you. But it's very character driven, and like you're not watching the show that's on the screen, right? Like that's a thing I think a lot of people aren't thinking about. Is like on screen is a sitcom, but that's not what's going on, and that's not what you should be paying attention to. And so, I think the people that are bored are watching a sitcom, whereas like, you need to be there for when shit gets weird. I was
enjoying the sitcom part too, but I was definitely more about the subtext and seeing the odd moments that are in each episode.
For me, like thinking about it right now, it's like when I watch, like the first few minutes of a horror movie or something like that, where it's like, shit's going to get creepy, or there's going to be a jump scare or whatever it is, but you're not sure what kind of movie you're watching just yet. And so you're paying attention to fucking everything. And oh my God, that shadow moved. And what's that sound? And who's behind me? And, whatever else. Like there's some horror movies that catch that flavor. That's kind of like WandaVision. Like I'm not, like, sure. Okay. Yeah. Sitcom, they do a pretty good job of it. They hit a lot of the tropes, but like I said, that's not what I'm watching. What I'm watching is the commercials, because the commercials are telling you like, wait a minute, what's going on here? I'm trying to figure out who's the dude on the radio, which, we got answered for this week and everything like that.
Have we seen him before in some other Marvel things?
Yeah, my dude.
He's so familiar.
Are you kidding? Because he was in Ant-Man and the Wasp.
Right, Ant-Man and the Wasp. That's where he is.
He's his parole agent. So, yeah.
Right.
And he's also Asian Jim from Office Space. So
I haven't seen that.
Well, I mean, you've probably seen the memes though, but
I've seen the memes. I'm gonna need you to get that to me. Memes, right? That guy?
No, that
with the glasses.
Sorry, I said Office Space. I meant The Office. So, right? Because Dwight, and John Krasinski, and So yes, you responded to my incorrectness correctly, but yeah. So he's Asian Jim from The Office. Yeah. So what's great about it too, though, did you catch? So like minor thing, but when he meets Captain Rambeau, which I had to fill in Amber on and everything like that. When he hands her his card, he does the close-up magic. Yes,
I noticed
it
that,
was
but I
so
didn't
great
connect it to
because
Ant-Man. But I do. Like when you saved it, because I couldn't. I was like, I'm sure I've seen him in something Marvel, but I've only watched the Ant-Man and the Wasp, those two like once each.
Yeah. So for the director, he's kind of like the straight man for the comedy for Ant-Man and the Wasp a little bit, and so you've got Ant-Man, and he's been on house arrest for 2 years because of the events of Civil War. He gets caught and he gets put on house arrest, and then this FBI agent, he's the head of this team that has to check on him or break down his door if they think that he's broken his house arrest. And so there are tons of moments where he gets in and he's very serious and he's awkward and things like that, which adds to the humor. But then he'll be like, okay, well, as you know, in section 385 subparagraph 2 of the Sokovia Accords, this is illegal. How'd you do it? What? How'd you do the thing with the card? And so like it becomes a part of their joke that it's like Ant-Man has been practicing misdirection and his close-up magic with the cards because he's by himself for 2 years and he has to entertain his daughter inside the house. Like he can't just take her places and whatever. And so like when he walks up to the captain, it's such a subtle thing, but he just goes, here's my business card, and it's just like, somebody's been practicing his magic in the last couple of years, so anyway, it's been great. This episode really brought a lot together because you got him, you get Kat Dennings, who was what's her face's assistant, Jane, Thor's girlfriend's assistant from the Thor movies. So now she's got her PhD and she's all official. It was funny because all of the comedy relief from these other movies are like they're serious now, right? They all growed up. And when I was talking to Amber about it, it's like, this is post the blip, right? So it's been 5 years. So if these guys, didn't get blipped out, then they're all grown up now. They're not the comedy relief sidekicks that they were in phase 1 through 3. So anyway, it's been fun.
I really like that little episode 4, kind of like something we haven't really gotten to see much. Is like post blip, like blip reversal.
Dude, that scene was so fucking creepy, and we were just like horrified because it's like what's happening, but what sets in is the logistical horror, right? Because they're in a hospital and people are being formed back together. You see them like literally, fast forward the rewind on them getting unzipped, like you see in Infinity War. You see them materialize, and then you realize, oh shit, they're coming back where they were. So imagine the guy who's on the operating table who got snapped comes back. The guy who's in the hospital bed recovering, and somebody else is in his bed now.
Car.
Yeah, or just
in an airplane.
Right, and so
the guys in the airplanes are fucked.
Yeah, right. So in the hospital, it's chaos enough. But yeah, that's great points too. Like imagine the crews on submarines or on their ships that just. Well, I'm at sea now, and so yes, I guess the blip wasn't all good news, right? But you get some of that in this sequence where she's basically, her story is she's sitting next to the recovery bed for her mom who just got out of surgery for cancer, and now the bed's empty. But as she's going down the hallway, the nurses and like literally some of the nurses and doctors obviously are coming back. They're like, oh my God, where am I and what's going on? And then the other ones that have been there for 5 years are like, Jesus Christ, like we don't have the logistics and the planning for this. Like, people are just appearing places, so and then from the blip perspective, you might have fallen asleep for 20 minutes was her story. And you get a little bit of that from Peter Parker as well in Infinity War, where it's like, well, I was there and then I was going away, but now I'm back, and it's been like 30 seconds, right? It's like, no, my dude, it's been 5 years. But yeah, definitely some good body horror, and like for what should have been a good thing, right? The heroes are trying to do the good thing and bring people back. You finally get the visceral, like, sure, bring everybody back. Matter. Right.
And the consequences are so much more fun than anything else.
Well, yeah, and it's realistic, right? Like the heroes did the good thing, they did the right thing, but they did the simple thing and they didn't think it through very far, despite all of the planning, despite inventing time travel and fighting Thanos and doing all the impossible things. It probably won't matter in the MCU. It's possible, but like you could see them doing like a Red War type of story with the whole or the Red Court, he just wiped out the number one power in the universe as far as conquering and wrecking shit goes.
So what's going into the vacuum?
Yeah, who's coming out next, right? That's another consequence. But yeah, well, again, Thanos was not a threat to Galactus. Like maybe with the stones he was, but that's what I'm saying.
The stones, sure. Before that,
it probably won't matter so much, right? But you could see, like, think about like what Captain Marvel says, like Earth, like not every planet has Earth's heroes. Like this shit's happening everywhere in the galaxy, everywhere in the universe. So there you go too. There's your space liners, right? How many people just got spaced? Like if you count it through the entire galaxy and all the different permutations, maybe instead of half of everybody died, still like 10 or 20% of people, maybe not that much, but quite a few people, certainly millions of people, potentially billions across the galaxy.
And instead of just dead, disintegrating sort of peacefully, now they're going to suffer whatever it is that they are now stuck in.
Well, and another thought I just had too is the guy who was going through the crosswalk now materializes in the middle of a crosswalk in busy traffic, So yeah, it's
God forbid someone was on an elevator. Ugh.
Right. Yeah.
It was really cool
because it's Marvel, they gloss over some of that for us, but
pussies.
How dare you say that word? That's your
word. I really enjoyed seeing what was hinted at in the end of the Spider-Man movie, the second one.
What do you mean?
Home, right? Sword.
They hinted at that in Spider-Man?
I got the impression, at least, and that was my theory, that the whole space station thing that was Sword.
Oh yeah, sure. Okay, you're talking with Nick Fury and all that. Okay,
because there was how I was talking about grounded, and you can't go up there, and I was kind of thinking about that space station that was up there that Nick Fury was on.
But I don't think he was on a station. I think he was, I think he was
spaceship or something.
Yeah. So I need to catch up on Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. because they get into some of that as well, and then I guess they go time travel in the later seasons, but. Yeah, like because we don't know so far, but it definitely seems like the current phase is going to involve them pretty heavily, So,
man, it got me all hyped up for watching some Marvel again. I think I put on Endgame right after, but I didn't get to finish it because podcast.
Right. There you go. Yeah, it's kind of tough because I'm all caught up on Expanse, and next week looks like it's going to be the season
finale. I hate
finale,
waiting.
So. Yeah.
Fuck you for making me wait.
And WandaVision's even worse though. I mean, like, don't get me wrong. Expanse has been pretty rough this season for going episode to episode, but at the same time, like they also have plot armor in the way that a lot of other shows don't. Like, I don't think anybody truly major in the Expanse has ever died. Spoiler alert. If your name is Captain Kirk in Star Trek, you're not in danger.
Yeah, but they did actually off some people that I was kind of surprised about.
Who?
Fred Johnson.
Okay, a little bit, yes, but still secondary characters, right? It like once Miller dies though, all of the secondary characters are on the list. So spoiler alert.
Yeah, but Miller doesn't make it, wasn't a secondary character.
But he was,
like I mean, sure, he's not the super protagonist of Holden, but he. Oh, by the way, I figured out why I thought Thomas Jane was in the 60s.
Okay.
I'm mixing him up with Christopher Lambert.
Okay.
The Punisher guy is not the Highlander guy, but they look exactly the same.
Yep, there you go.
Yeah.
Yep. That I can see it. I would like some kick-ass action movie where they're brothers or something, but
they could pull it off. Totally. Yeah. They look way too similar. But Miller was very central, and I think you need to, if you want to sell someone on watching The Expanse, you need to include him in the sell, because that's how I got someone else to start watching it. But
when you said that, like when you were still catching up to where I was, and now you're ahead of me. But I was like, oh man, I love Miller so much. Great. Okay, before you knew what's gonna happen to him, I was like, yeah, Miller's great.
Like one of the best parts was like in season 3 when like they're stuck in this weird alien bubble and much like very high technical sci-fi shit's happening, and then there's Miller going like, you gotta crack the case, you gotta go open the files, and there's an illegal brothel. Is just fucking amazing for me.
Right. He does such a great job simultaneously being Miller and then being off as Miller, that you know something's not quite right as the characters are still putting that together. And like doors and corners, right? That's his phrase or whatever. It's like that's where they get you, doors and corners. And it's such great real life advice if you're ever clearing a house, but also it's so great for his character. Especially because of what you get towards the end of season 1 or is it season 2 where he kind of like signs on with OPA a little bit when they go to series, and like he's on the strike teams, right? When they go to the proto-molecule base, I guess is the one that I'm thinking. And
and that's
like they had paintball guns and we had real guns. So, but like that's where some of that comes in too. Like he knows it, but he didn't know it until some of his team got blasted. And it's like, stop standing in the fucking doorways. Like, what's wrong with you guys? But yeah, he's such a great character, and love him as an actor, like we talked about the last episode. And but anyway, yes, in my opinion, I do know some spoilers, right, for what's supposed to come in the next episode and whatever, but like for the most part, the crew of the Rocinante is like, whatever, they've all got plot armor, so
they might have plot armor, but
it's such a badass scene when she jumps, like,
oh my god, yes, and all the shit that she's doing on that ship alone with such limited capability. Oh my god.
Yeah, so last week's episode was the one where she did kind of like the Morse code or whatever, was the first one that I actually watched through the end credits, and I had chills the entire time because it's so chilling because of where she's at, what she's doing, and
the damage
the
that
message
she's accumulated.
The
the ingenuity it takes with like no equipment, very little oxygen to be able to alter what she has and she's stuck with.
Right. Oh, my God. Well, and what she's doing too is harkens back to a few seasons ago, like a few years ago, with Capaldi, one of my favorite scenes from Doctor Who. So I know this is a little bit far afield, but there's basically an episode where he gets stuck in a temporal loop, but he realizes that he can make changes, but he doesn't realize that he realizes he can make changes. He just knows, like, basically what happens is, like, every time he loops, he sees that there's this impenetrable crystal wall, but it seems like it's getting worked. And then as he goes through his cycle, he realizes he's the one working it. And so he basically like punches this crystal wall for like 1 billion years because he's a Time Lord stuck in a loop. And then he finally breaks through eventually. And it's just one of those where, like, when you realize what he's doing and why he's doing it, and then he figures it out, and you're like, oh, holy shit. And so, like, every time she marks a notch on the wall and goes back in, like, the only problem I had with this last episode with that sort of thing is, like, she goes in to get water, but it's like she probably sweat out more water getting the water that she got. But other than that, like, because what she's doing is just so crazy with the suit and everything. But
it's like, so even if she technically has plot armor, no, she's suffering so much for it that I'm okay.
Well, in this episode, like, it may be that I'm not remembering quite right, but it seemed like her wounds were worse, right? Yes. Like, she's not healing.
Well,
obviously,
if she's dehydrated, how long has she been on that ship? She might have been on there for days by this point with no water, no food, very little oxygen, suffering from the vacuum wounds.
Right. Ugh. Well, and that's the thing too. Like, I definitely had a thought where it's like, it's so some spoilers, right? Like, obviously some of her crew is coming to save her, so she sees the ship, and it's like, after all of this, after trying to get the message out, after trying to warn everybody, and you're trying to save them, I would blow myself up. Like, it, rather than take several of my friends with me, if that's what it took. But she still won't give up, and so she's got to have a plan or something, right? Because she's so intelligent and driven and whatever. But that's why I was like, if you're within the blast radius or about to be, like, I would blow up the ship before I let you dock with it. That's for sure.
Well, there's
so
that.
I'm curious.
She could be hoping to just do the hard vacuum escape again. She did it once.
Maybe, yeah, that's a good point.
And if she
but
has
she's
like
got
a
to
real,
be able to tell them,
if they're like within line sight or whatever,
fair.
if she can do the SOS and everything, and she actually puts on a suit this time instead of even if it's got only like a minute or two, that might get her enough so that they can get her and get away. But they still have to figure out that is the situation.
Right. But that's a good point. I mean, if she just spacewalks with a suit this time.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Yeah, when she stepped out of that airlock, I think I literally stopped breathing.
Oh, yeah. Held your breath as long as she did.
Oh, yeah. Well, either that or just realized it's like, why can't I breathe either?
Right. Yeah. And it was so great too, because like, when I saw what was in her hand, like I understood when her friend was still trying to figure it out. Her friend was like, no, not again. And it's like, yeah, not again. Sorry, buddy. When she said you shouldn't have followed me, she didn't mean because now we're both going to die. I mean, she had to know that was a likely outcome, but she obviously thought there was a chance as well. Yeah. So,
and the absolute craziness, terror of like she lost consciousness. So like the waking up and still continuing to have the like effort to do all the shit that she did afterwards. Like that's yeah.
Yep. Yeah, amazing scenes. And I mean, that's just a sliver of it, right? Like all of them have had great stories, except for maybe Holden, but even still, Holden has some good moments. Like my brother was sending some of the clips with the whole, like, with Bull, I think was Fred Johnson's like main guy that's now kind of like Holden's number one. He's like, we don't have unlimited fuel, right? And Holden just kind of stares at him. He's like, but we'll figure it out. So we'll see what we can do. Yeah. Just shut up and get it done, man. Like
Holden certainly hasn't been taking the spotlight this time, but he also was a little bit of an idiot. Maybe not too bad. Maybe I missed it, but like the woman who brought down Tycho Station was also the one working on the ship, and he didn't look for sabotage.
Right. Yeah, that was definitely one of those things. But we had to have,
yes, we had to have
save the
Naomi
day,
saving him. And that was fine. That part was good.
And it was, the fact that it was her weapon, right, that was being used, gave the character even more, skin in the game, so to speak. But yes, absolutely. Like as soon as they sit down, like, so he sits down with a Belter crew, which, we just got off of the turncoats. So why is there not a triple agent? Why is this not staged? Right. So like I've been watching the Bodyguard the entire time, because stereotypically he looks like the tough that would turncoat, right? Like the entire time, every time he's standing behind them while they're talking, I'm like, I'm watching you. I'm watching for when you draw that sidearm, my dude. But he's been good, he's been good on the crew. But yeah, they all sit down like, we're booting up the engine. It's like, or don't, like make sure there isn't a bomb on your fuel line, because yeah.
I've been bored with Amos this season, though. Like, well, mostly Amos himself is still fun, but I don't care about Clarissa. I don't care about Baltimore.
So some of that, right? But it's because of his story, and it's his playground. Like, I liked it. This episode was bad. Don't get me wrong. Like, from Amos's perspective, like, okay, so we're dealing with a bunch of guys who obviously have long guns, and I get it. We're all from the city, so we don't have also long guns. But at some point, somebody should have picked up a rifle. And you might be able to squint and look sideways and be like, yeah, well, they took out the rifle guys first. But basically you had, 35 seconds worth of she's into Amos with a submachine gun, and he's got the unlimited firing shotgun. So those scenes were not great. They did get their comeuppance, and him looking out the window afterwards was fantastic. But it humanized him in a lot of ways, right? Like, Amos is still a psychopath. He's still doing bad things, but you needed somebody there to point that out. If he was by himself, it wouldn't have worked. And you contrasted it like two ways, right? He's now the middle ground. He's not the lowest common denominator, because on the Rocinante, he's a psychopath and he's the lowest common denominator. But next to Clarissa and his brother, you can see is even worse off than he is now. So you can see how Amos has gotten some humanity. And then Clarissa is like, look, I do bad things, but I had good reasons. But yeah, we're bad people, and this is not how good people behave. And so she's pulling them all up in a way. And, he, between Naomi and Clarissa, has gotten some of that humanity that he otherwise doesn't have. Like, contrasted as well with the first episode, right? Or his first episode, if it was the second one, where he's on the ship and the whole, like, I hate waiting, so I'm just going to go smash 10 dudes in the face in the shower.
And that was a really good moment for him, because he's just decided he's going to protect the people who are real close to him, and he's not going to let them get fleeced. And so then he gets into a gigantic fight in a shower. I love when he landed on Luna and he's like, I didn't start it.
Right. Yeah. What? No, we're not here for that. Whatever it is.
And then, oh my God,
should we ask?
When he's in the same room with Avasarala, and she said, like, I'm a member of Parliament, not your favorite stripper. And he's like, you could be both.
Right. Yeah. You're looking good.
That part was that's great, but I think I just don't like Clarissa.
See, and I mean, I didn't entirely understand her whole angle when she was first introduced, and then I thought it was such a waste. So I'm kind of glad she's back. And I don't entirely understand his connection, other than maybe it's because she's more like his people, right? In the same way that he had the fling with that security guard in, what was it, season 3 or was it 4?
4. That's
4.
Yeah, so
that's where I am.
Okay, yeah. So she was great for him in a lot of ways, in the sense that, like, I mean, she's people, like actual people with feelings and shit like that, but she's not like attached, right? Until she gets attached to him. And so with Clarissa, like, he has some more of that. It anchors him in the way that, like, Naomi kind of adopted him, right? So she's family and whatever. And this one, especially talking to I can't remember his brother's name.
The funny thing is, I keep wanting to call that guy Timmy, because he constantly keeps calling him Timmy.
Right. But talking about tribes, right? And so, you're right in retrospect that, like, Amos kind of adopts, people as his tribes, but he also has a thing for older people, both, in a creepy way and not, because I think as much as anything, he wasn't protecting the 2 kids that were in the bunk with him. He was protecting, I mean, first of all, he's not going to pay. And then he was standing up for the old lady. And you mostly get that through side glances, not because anybody said anything, Yes. And he obviously has a thing for Avasarala, but who doesn't? I mean, whew.
Right.
But yeah, no, she's just great. I mean, and how she reacts to the, to the general or whatever. And, she's like, you're not afraid of me and you won't tell me bullshit, so you're perfect for my cabinet. And
there's that, but like when she got up and walked out, I was happy.
Yes, no, it was great. And, when everybody did, and I'm like, so what do you do? Like, you don't have a functioning government at this point. And so that was the next scene. And she's like, oh shit, are you guys doing a coup? No. Why would you say that? But those were great moments for several reasons.
She's such a wonderful, strongly written character. Everything that she went through in season 4 with, like, the election and how, I mean, she lost, but the damage it did to her marriage, and now he's dead.
Right.
Because they separated, because he was there at Columbia instead of on Luna with her.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's just everything, because consequences are more entertaining. So,
consequences are the most important thing in the stories. Like, if there aren't the consequences, then nothing matters.
Right. Well, and what's great overall for Expanse is, like, a lot of the story beats really they're like orbital periods, especially in deep space. Like, think about how long it takes Jupiter to go around the sun. That's how long the plot points are going to come back. And I know it's taking me a while to make the point, but that's the point. No, but I mean, like, this whole season gets kicked off with using technology that was stolen in, like, season 1 or 2, and like, it's all ramifications of shit that started, either just before the show started story-wise, or, that they dealt with during the story. And so, yeah, it's great to see all of those things cause and effect, right?
Yeah.
And it's just good overall. Like, it's been a little bit of a gamble having the main crew, like, separated.
Yeah, I don't
it's
really
told
like
more
that.
of the story, you know. My brother said the same thing. Like he was like, I think he said something along the lines of like, I didn't really like the Boston story, and I didn't really like that Amos was on planet. And I'm like, yeah, but how else were they going to tell you, like, show you the impact of what happened on Earth? Are we telling the story from the Belter perspective? Because like, if you take out that leg of the story, now everything that's happening is in the belt, and that's the only thing that matters. But it isn't, right? You know, because Bobby starts out on Mars, you get some of what's going on Mars, and you see some of that going on. Because you had Amos.
That's the storyline I'm on now, I think, unless you're talking about more on Mars, with Bobby returning to Mars and trying to be a civilian and all that.
Yeah,
that's going to pay off more. So,
it does pay off.
You know. I really enjoy that.
I found that kind of boring in season 4, but setting up for where she is now is obviously important.
Right.
So that's good. But yeah, I mean, it's okay. So when they were down in the prison and then shit happened, okay, that was a great moment. And then needing to get out, like, that's good. But
Tiny.
but kind of like the travel, Baltimore in general, I don't really like Clarissa. I don't like the last episode with Amos was just like not as good as it should have been.
Yeah, you're also talking to Mr. Post-Apocalypse, so seeing the underwater bombed out cities and dealing with this guy might eat us or he might give us a sandwich, you know, that when they meet people on the road and stuff like that, like and the
fact what happens?
Amos is my favorite. Now they just, I mean, they basically are in the bombed out wilderness of, you know, of some of what happens in the Boston area. So, you know, it was just good. And the moment where they get to shelter and she's like, we did a bad thing again, didn't we? He's like, yeah, I guess we're not good people. You know, because she's like, this isn't what good people do. Like,
right. Well, she was having that like moral quibble, and she seemed more black and white of like, but we needed the stuff and he was going to shoot us. And then she points out, well, that's not what good people do. It's like, I need to get back to the captain.
Right. Yeah, because he knows that, you know, he's brutal and animalistic and a psychopath, but that the crew, his tribe, keeps him pointed in the right direction, you know, which is why he follows Holden, and he follows Naomi, who follows Holden probably. But, you know, after
she betrayed them, right? He was trying to do it on his own, and he seemed to kind of latch a little bit more onto Holden than to Naomi specifically. But he doesn't like discount her opinion, but he does, like, especially you see in season 4, the captain says this, therefore it's going to happen.
Right.
Yeah, I guess. I almost feel like kind of petered out that whole I can't trust you anymore, Naomi thing. It seems like he just if someone's on his loyalties to people on the ship, no matter who it is.
Right.
Yeah,
they're his family now, and he's never really had a family, so
he didn't really hate her. But what he said to Alex was like, well, she's not the person I thought she was. And that was it.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's super interesting
enough for him. So
with that reporter who's digging into his past and bringing and I was like, man, is she just gonna end up dead in an airlock? And everybody's and he's gonna be like, I don't know.
I did love the moment when he turned her down. Like immediately after that moment, that was just good. Amos is great. I just don't like. I don't care about Baltimore.
I didn't like the season. Yeah. For me, it made him more likable in some ways, right? Or I guess I'm more freely able to say that I like him now that he's not entirely just a psychopath. But, you know, the fact that, he's like, we're going to throw down and I'm going to walk away. Like, I might get my leg almost blown off and I might be, you know, all fucked up and shit like season 4. But, you know, I'm going to walk out of here because that's who I am. You know, like one of my favorite lines from season 4 is like, you know, before the end of this, someone's going to die. He's like, I'm free right now.
Right.
So, like, what you doing? Because I'm not busy. So,
and he has to repeat that. Like, Mercury was just trying to be threatening, and he's like, but seriously, I'm free. Let's go.
I really hope, I haven't finished that season, but God, I just want to get rid of that Mercury guy. I'm sick
of
him.
Yeah.
I mean, and of all the actors, like, he was great for that part.
He plays it well. Like, when I hate a character, usually the actor's good.
Right.
Yes.
Yeah.
But yeah, he has to go.
Well, how about you shut up and go watch some Expanse?
Yeah, catch up. Come on.
It's actually the only I've been watching the Clone Wars, and the only reason I didn't watch
That's the wrong show. We just said stop.
Right.
That's the only reason I didn't watch Expanse was just because I didn't have the app set up on my phone. I was like, I can't be fucked setting up now. That I just watched Disney Plus.
Yeah. Where are you at in Clone Wars?
Episode 19 of the first season.
Oh wow, yeah.
I've been watching it for
you're still in like proper Star Wars. Like this is still like, yeah, I could see how this relates to the movies. And then I think season 3 and 4 is when they finally jump the shark a little bit, and then towards the end they stick the landing again. No, because you said Clone Wars, right? So
yeah.
Because so it gets darker and darker until like to the point where I was like, I'm not really sure I'm comfortable watching this with a 2-year-old anymore. But that's when you get like the Force Planet and all of that.
That reminds me of I saw this whole thing from Freddie Prinze Jr. I think one of the voice actors. I was like, it's a show for kids, calm down or something to people. And then someone made a clip.
Rebels, yeah. So.
And then someone made a clip out of things that happens in the cartoon, and it's just like a lot of murder and a lot of killing and a lot of really
I was raised on shit like that, and I turned out fine.
Yeah, you were raised on actual xenomorphs and Terminators and Predator and
but then it's not
so really not just like murder, but like you're gonna feel it the whole time you're dying. Whereas like at least the Jedi, it's like we hit you with a rock on the head and then you did. Or that guy exploded with 20 of his friends. But this is like Superman murder. This isn't
that clone got his head cut off. That clone got his head cut off. That's okay. You can't see it because they're wearing a helmet.
Yeah, right. Jango Fett. Like, hey, is his head still in the helmet while it's rolling across the? God damn it, his kid's right there. What's wrong with you?
I actually just finished a really interesting episode where a clone is betraying them, and it brings up this whole idea of free will for the clones, and it's just kind of like, man, this.
Don't worry, they'll revisit that. So, several ways.
But yeah, it's been good. The animation is rough. Obi-Wan looks like a garden gnome. But I've heard it gets better, and I've seen some screenshots that it definitely gets better.
Gotcha. Yeah, I don't remember like it bugging me that much, and I'm sure it gets better. Certainly, the like final few episodes are very well done. So.
And I also still need to finish Fringe, but I've actually got my TV set up, so I've been sitting in my bed just watching things on apps for once instead, and Fringe is on my computer.
So the only good thing in Fringe is more Leonard Nimoy, so that's it.
Well, Jared Harris is in it.
What do you mean? The guy who played Walter Bishop is a delight of a character.
He is.
I mean, just a delight, and the relationship with his son and everything. I love it. Like what I like the least is Olivia.
Really? She wasn't that bad.
I'm not interested. I want more Peter. I want more Walter.
She has a good dynamic with them. I'll give them that. They had a pretty good chemistry between all of them. I mean, Walter is the amazing point because he's crazy and it's wonderful, but
maybe the actress is just not very good and the character work is fine. I don't know. I don't like her as much as anything else in the show. Almost everything else I like more. But I don't know. That doesn't mean I hate her, by the way. It's just I'm kind of lukewarm on her, while the rest I'm actually.
What season are you in?
3.
You should like her by now.
Well, I might have to watch it after all. Lance Reddick's in it, so
Yeah,
and like a lot, so 90 episodes. Lance Reddick, Zavala, and he's like the concierge from John Wick, I think.
Oh, the boss. Yeah.
Oh, I forgot that was his name. Yeah, he's a major side character.
He's a major character, and it's funny when I heard his voice in Destiny, I was like, "That's the Fringe guy."
See, I go the other way because I saw him and stuff, but like his main role for me was Zavala, and it's funny too because we were having. Amber asked me a bunch of random questions about celebrities in the last week, which didn't raise my suspicions at all. But she was talking about like Zoe versus the mechanic in Firefly. I can't remember the character's name. Like some of them I associate more with the character now, and some of them I associate more with the actress. And it was just funny because I was like, wait,
the actress is Jewel something, Jewel State.
Jewel State, like yeah. I was like, it depends. Like if I'm gonna have dinner with somebody, like Zoe is great, but Jewel State, I mean, excuse me. So, but
I mean, Jewel State is like, I mean, I've watched a lot of Stargate Atlantis. She's in that too, and she is
right.
She's fine.
And I get it. They're all married. They've got kids, but I'm still human. But in any case, Zoe is the voice for Ikora, which is the warlock. So it's like boss lady. I mean, I'm a warlock. So it's like, would you like to spend time with pretty to look at or the wizard's wizard? It's a tough call, man. So yeah.
That is
that, and Zoe's just a badass character in general. But yeah. Anyway, random. So.
That's what this podcast is, so who cares?
Right.
That is what this podcast is.
At some point, we'll have to stop talking, right? So.
Possibly. Eventually.
Someone just like in the role. You just enjoy the moment.
I missed you guys so much, and there's no EG here. It's been so pleasant.
Yeah. I know what you mean. So.
But making him mad is so much fun.
Nobody was negative today. Nobody was.
Oh, we were negative about GameStop. Like in the hedge funds, we were negative. Well, but it's fun being negative.
Repeat after me, eat the rich,
Yes.
So no, we're not negative about GameStop. GameStop is great. It was the tinder and the catalyst we needed for the revolution. So,
of all
and
things.
It just so happened that not a single shop needed to be fired. And, entire hedge funds probably will go out of business to the tunes of billions of dollars. It's fantastic. And people finally laid bare the corruption and, double standard inherent in the system.
Oh, so, if you want to understand,
and next week it won't matter because we're Americans. So,
if you want to understand shorting, which is what the whole Robin Hood thing is about, and learn about the financial crisis of 2008, and watch one of my favorite movies, watch The Big Short.
That was a very good movie. I
have seen that like 10 times.
I don't know how accurate it was. I don't know how much it told me that was bullshit because I just went into it blind, but it was a very fun movie.
I did some research and it seems to be mostly accurate from what I found out. Please don't sue me if I am wrong. I just Googled and read
up on it. Like your research matched up with what you saw in the movies and therefore cognitive dissonance. You said, oh yeah, this must be true. So,
people on Reddit who works in the industry said it was true.
I don't know. Say they work on
yeah, because I'm sure all of their credentials checked out when you checked them, right?
I mean, Reddit.
Hey, it's me, your brother. I work in the industry.
So. Amazing movie, though. Please, watch it.
It's very fun. All right, shall we end this time? We've gone over.
No way. What else were we going to talk about? You got the Expanse out of your system a little bit. You wanted to talk more sci-fi. Oh yeah, I was gonna talk to Andreas. I've been playing Control. I can't believe you don't think it's a horror game, you weirdo.
I don't know. I mean, is it a horror? I guess. I mean, I wasn't scared.
I'm not saying it's scary.
You don't need to be scared for it to be horror.
I was raised on a diet of Freddy Krueger and Xenomorphs. I'm not saying it's scary per se. There's certainly some aspects of it that are psychologically unsettling. But have you read any of the SCP stuff? Did you watch Cabin in the Woods? Did you find that horrific?
No. Is Cabin in the Woods horror?
What is a horror movie to you? Let's flip the script on this a little bit. Hey, because if Cabin in the Woods is not a horror movie, I don't know how to connect with you on this genre. So.
I haven't seen that one, so I can't comment. But
because it's Joss Whedon, the Blair Witch Project. Okay, shut the hell up and get me a horror movie. So,
I don't know. Is that not a horror
movie?
The
Blair Witch Project was more a cultural phenomenon. Yes, it technically counts as horror, but give me something good. Give me something that you.
Something. I mean, Fred, that's a slasher.
Hereditary? Have either of you seen that one?
I haven't seen that one.
Haven't seen it.
Messed up.
So now, I mean, obviously there are subgenres. So yes, like slashers, horror, duh, but not necessarily. Obviously, Control is not a slasher. It's a psychological, very, very psychological to the point where between that, you could also say it's exploratory, but still floating people that they have lost control of themselves, and then the mind-controlled people that attack you, and the body horror.
But for me, it was just very. almost more like, just more trippy sci-fi, but I guess maybe trippy sci-fi just wears into horror a lot.
Yes.
I mean, it can,
yes, it does.
Like, so again, going back to like the body horror of it, right? And the little explodey fucks that chase you down the hiss something. They're literally like contorted backwards, half levitating, and run up to you and explode with their guts everywhere. But trippy sci-fi, just, like Doctor Strange is trippy sci-fi. Like,
you don't have to be scared for something to be horror.
Also true.
It doesn't have to be horror for you to be scared, as we had a previous conversation about social judgment.
Right. This is like approaching like necromorphs, like this is like, I mean, yeah, for most of the game, you're like using psychic powers and shooting at mind controlled bad guys. Right. So it's not like pushing the horror genre, but, there are definitely some. Yeah, and I don't think it's even one of the genres they ascribe to themselves, which was the other thing that was like, like, come on. So
yeah.
But if you're into SCPs and the idea that the government is like controlling the horrors of the natural universe, go, even because it's just Sweden, go watch Cabin in the Woods. It's
Cabin
great.
in the Woods is a great movie,
and I don't know how you don't think that it's a horror movie.
Like, I've heard people tell me it was a comedy, and then people tell me it's a horror, and I'm not sure what to expect.
It's a parody on horror movies, right? It's like,
so is that comedy?
It's like a
commentary. Have you watched horror movies recently where there are a bunch that you watched that didn't have any humor in them? It's becoming
Hereditary.
One of the defining
I don't
things.
think there was anything humorous in Hereditary.
So certain subgenres, sure, but guys, this is why I hate genres anyways, because they're so subjective.
Yeah.
But
they blend, like, it's also blendy, mushy anyway.
Yeah, so Cabin in the Woods, like, slapstick is the word that comes to mind, but it's not that bad. But it's like they do push some of the ridiculousness of the horror, that it's like it's delivered to you in a humorous package, but if you shut up and watch what's happening, it is actually horrific. Like it's one of those like Evil Dead and Army of Darkness, right? Like tell me that those aren't like horror movies, and then but they're also quite funny. So
I guess sure. By definitions, you've just
I've seen little bits.
I've seen them. But the definitions you just set up, I agree, that's horror. But to me, Army of Darkness was never really a horror movie.
Well, yeah, it doesn't have to give you
to be horror. More like a dark fantasy, right? Like, or something.
Sure. Army of Darkness, especially, I could see that. But yeah, so IMDb for Cabin in the Woods, comedy, horror. That's the order that the genres are listed in, and So yeah, you get that, but because it's a parody, like I don't know if parody is a genre, but that's where the comedy would come in. So anyway, yeah, let's see.
I mean, it's a fair argument to make that you make. I guess I don't know. To me, it's like horror. It's like, oh, scary movies.
Right. So yeah, Control says action, adventure, sci-fi, which. I mean, technically, but it's like you're being invaded and taken over by an extra dimensional intelligence.
That's also one of the vaguest descriptions.
Well, I mean, yes. But
action, adventure, sci-fi. Okay, that can mean anything.
In this case, it also butts up against horror. So
yeah, I was just like, there's one of the difficulties of genres. Like, well, I guess a couple. Like, it can be too narrow to count, or it can be way too broad to not mean anything.
Right. So is Resident Evil science fiction or horror to you?
Both.
Because science is the cause of the zombies, so it's technically science fiction. But
yeah, but it's also horror. It's like, so sci-fi or fantasy is a setting, horror is the flavor.
Right. Well,
so,
and then
that's why you both.
If you want to get into like the more obvious extremes, you could do Event Horizon.
Yeah.
So there's your sci-fi horror right there.
Yeah, that's definitely sci-fi horror.
But that's action adventure, because they're just going to hell just because people are gouging out their eyes and trying to sacrifice each other. Like, but it's all science fiction because
they stuck them in an airlock.
Right. Yeah. No, and music is just as ridiculous with the genres to me too.
Music is worse.
When I asked people, they were like, "Oh, well, they're not heavy metal or death metal. They're poison metal. I'm like, cool, define that for me. Well, this band. Oh, okay. So now one band is a specific genre now. So
yeah. I've been actually trying to figure things out about that lately, because you know how like the lo-fi streams have gotten really popular on YouTube. Well, I've been listening to some of them. It's like that song isn't lo-fi because that song is too complex for that. So why is it being included? Because it's kind of like a chill wave thing, I guess. But like, what the fuck does that even mean anymore?
I don't know what. Yeah, I don't know what chill wave versus lo-fi
or chill hop or whatever. I don't know them. And then like just even the simpler thing of like, there's a popular.
Did you guys see my beard just go gray because I'm too old to have this conversation?
There's popular radio station around. It calls itself like alternative rock. It's like, but these are some of the most popular bands ever.
Alternative rock is just popular. It's what anymore, and it's from like the 90s and 2000s.
Right, and it's not.
It's more like it's an A genre as much as anything, because we're very dangerously close to it. It's going to shift to classic rock, and then I don't know what you're going to have the old classic rock.
Yeah, what are you going to call classic rock at that point?
It's going to have to be ancient rock, I guess. I don't know. Like, they're like, this is from the distant 1970s, which I mean technically fits the definition of ancient. Like, that is a very loose definition itself, but it's just like, yes. We are still an infant culture that doesn't know how to classify things and speak to each other about our ideas. And then even better, we get snooty about it, right? So how dare you be wrong about the genre, about the same band that we both like? It was like, why do we got to be divisive about this? Like, I mean, obviously Andreas is wrong about the genres of Control, but so are the creators apparently, because it's like,
And things like that happen. I think I heard, was it Anne McCaffrey always thought of her books as fantasy, but everyone calls it sci-fi. Like the author disagreed with her readers in some direction about that.
That was one of the original problems I had with genres and literary analysis in the first place, is that lit nerds will tell you whatever the author says doesn't matter, which is horseshit, because how could the original context of the work not possibly influence the analysis of it?
Right. I mean, it matters, but it's not a whole thing.
Argument, right?
Right. It may not be the whole thing, but like it does matter what the author decides, right? Like obviously it matters the context of the thing, and you do lose some control of it when it gets published. But you can't.
I think in 2 weeks we need to argue about genres.
Ooh, all right.
We have to argue about this more.
Yeah. It is a topic you would like. So.
Okay.
But that whole thing is like the death of the author, right? And it's just like
maybe that should be a topic too. Maybe we can have topics in this podcast again.
Woohoo!
I've always been very much forward of the author, death of the author, like that what the author says matters until J.K. Rowling, and then it's kind of fucked a little bit with my opinion there. But I'm still mostly for if Jim says it, it's true. For example,
until he lies to you.
Yeah, this sort of relates, but I'm going to pivot us back off of topic, back to the other topic. Okay. Half-Life. Andreas, have you played Half-Life?
I never finished them, but I've played, yeah.
Okay.
Yes, I'd qualify as horror.
Okay. I mean, not according to IMDb, but it's action, adventure, sci-fi thriller, which again,
thriller doesn't mean Control. Shit.
I know, right? But that's why I'm saying
a horror game.
It's definitely sci-fi.
Amnesia,
don't get me wrong.
That's a straight up horror game.
Amnesia, I haven't played that one.
Amnesia is definitely a horror. I haven't played it, but I know of it, and it's a horror.
The Dark Descent. Well, it's a survival game, so yeah, survival horror.
Yeah, and I think you're in like a building that's haunted, and then there was like a bunch of people in the 1700s doing crazy, fucked up experiments, and you were one of them, and then you don't remember.
So it's fantasy.
I think it's kind of Lovecraftian.
That's what they're doing with like Control and Half-Life. Is like, well, we could set sci-fi elements, so this is fantasy, obviously, not horror. I
guess. And then Lovecraft is a genre on itself.
The horror genre as well as I thought I did. So
let's do some research.
Right. Horror video games. Because I think you could make the argument for, like, I know it's probably not the defining value of it, but even Doom, is a horror game and a little survival horror, at least originally,
I guess it's,
Doom, the shooter game?
Yeah.
Okay, because I thought I heard Dune. The spice.
Yeah, so Resident Evil, Dead Space, why is Dead Space horror but not Control?
Right.
That's why I'm like, some of these, when you compare the two of them, they don't seem very...
It's the vibe.
BioShock is listed as a horror game. So, Like, no. I mean, yes, but not compared to the others. Like,
I mean, a lot of this has like similar to book genres of like a lot of it's just marketing of like what is YA versus adult. A lot of it is just like where did they put it on the shelf? There's like, okay, so this is a romance horror sci-fi thing. Do you put it with the sci-fi next to Larry Niven? Do you put it next to the romance of Daniel Steele or whatever? What do you do? That's a lot of a problem.
Right. Well, and again, subjective. It's not. There is no scientific rigor being applied to this. There's no point where you're going to get 50 people in the room. They're all going to agree on the same opinion. So that's why I think the whole idea of genres is bunk. But action, adventure, horror, mystery, sci-fi, thriller. That's what BioShock is apparently. Which the mystery is just like, like very light mystery maybe, but like compared to some of the other ones we talked about, So basically the consensus, as far as I can see, is that it's subjective. It's whoever filled out the page or put the book on the shelf, as your analogy was. Doom 3 is listed as a horror video game, but not the other Dooms, I guess. Even though you're literally fighting the denizens of hell that have like torn open the earth and like impaled people on spikes. So, yeah.
Oh, speaking of denizens from hell impaling people on spikes, Hellraiser. That's a horror movie.
Yes. Yeah. Like, so now again, sci-fi, because they're aliens.
Yeah, alternate dimensions and shit.
I thought they were more. I thought it would be more into fantasy because it's kind of magic with the cube.
Clarke's third law, sufficiently advanced magic.
Magic is indistinguishable from magic, I guess.
Yeah. I think I've only seen the first one of those because it was like I had to, like, in the last 10-ish years, I've been going through like the classics or the definitive stuff, the stuff you always keep hearing about and whatever. But
not the best one from what I remember. It's been a long time, but I think it's like one of the sequels are better, and then they get dumb, real dumb. But like 2 or 3 or something, it's the best one if I remember.
Yeah, the problem is like most horror. Like certainly movies, I feel like are just like, so I had a nightmare or I had a really good idea for a nightmare, but you're not watching it for the plot very often. So, like it's for the imagery, it's for how it makes you feel, but it's not like, oh, well, this is a self-contained story that makes a lot of sense. And now we understand the origins and the, staying power of the trilobites or the, whatever, Cenobites. I forget the aliens. Thank you. So it was funny, but,
Trilobite was not a bad word to reach for when you don't remember Cenobite.
Right. So, I mean, and don't get me wrong, like it added several important things to the horror genre. It gets referenced in Cabin in the Woods because everything horror gets referenced there pretty much. But so it's one of my favorite horror movies. Go watch it, director. But,
it is really good. I've seen it like 4 times too.
Yeah. I mean, the problem is you probably won't like it because it's Joss Whedon and it's got his humor in it, obviously. But if you can get past that, it's great. But and it's a meta-analysis of horror at the same time, right? Like they're tropes, but it's on purpose, and they acknowledge that in a lot of ways. So
I might be able to enjoy that. I don't know if I know enough of the horror genre to be able to appreciate the parody as much.
I think this is gonna, I think you'll be fine.
Okay.
Like I'm not saying it's very sophisticated. I'm just saying, like, are you familiar with horror tropes? Like, are you familiar with the twins or the creepy ballerina dancer or Cenobites or, zombies or fish people or, and then couple that with, are you familiar in the vaguest sense with the fact that the government would try to protect you or control that sort of thing? Cool. Those 2 things had a baby. And then there's a bunch of kids in the middle of it, so it like, it doesn't necessarily add anything new, but it like threads it all together, I guess, if that makes sense.
Even those
makes sense.
Even the stereotypical behavior that the people have in these movies, gets explained.
Right. It kind of gets justified. Like, why is the blonde dumb? She's not she's not just dumb. They're all college students getting advanced degrees. Like,
yeah,
so,
at some point there's like some characters like, why are you acting like this? You're a major in physics or something. You're like, what's going on here?
Right.
They're really good.
Yeah. Also, Thor's in it, so. Yeah.
Okay.
Not a selling point for her because she doesn't like good things.
Well, the Thor movie sucked.
Sorry, I apologize. I sounded like EG there, and I take that back.
Yeah. I'm pretty sure he gets his shirt off at least once. So somebody makes out with a wolf, So
yep.
It all makes sense in the context of the movie, but okay. I knew I would throw that out there, and you'd be like, "What the fuck?" And you'd either be interested to find out why, or.
Remember the last time you followed our recommendation and you've been watched The Expanse in 2 weeks?
My dude has a.
This is just a movie. It's only going to take 2 hours.
I recognize the fine gentleman from Denmark. I yield my time to him.
Yeah. So. This is just a movie. It's only 2 hours. Like,
right?
Oh, how bad can it be?
Maybe.
Sit down with the hubby and watch it.
I'm currently getting him through The Expanse.
Oh, I think he said hobby, not, or did you say
hubby?
Hubby. Okay.
Husband.
Right? I heard.
That's how you say that. That's an American thing.
Does she knit now? Like, you didn't bring that up.
No, I have limited time. He doesn't like sitting down and binging things as much as I do. So I have how about 1 episode a day?
Oh yeah.
2 episodes. Can we do that? And it's like I'm getting through them slowly.
Yeah, that's where I am with the wife, but she actually does enjoy a lot of it, like I do. We just have shit to do, and I'm the one that shirks responsibilities, and she's the one that has to take care of the kids, because if she doesn't, nobody does. But
it's like he wants to watch something with me. He wants to play video games, and I don't want to stop him from doing that. So it's just like, how much can how about let's just be tired and lay on the couch, and then all of a sudden it's on.
Right. There's that, and then
I feel like a movie's just an easier sell here. It's just 2 hours one time.
Right.
Actually, I found that harder.
He's just not like watching media, I guess.
The difference is you got to compare it to binging, right? It's like, well, we could spend the next 5 hours watching 5 episodes of The Expanse, or we could just watch this one movie. It's only 2 hours. So that's how you sell it, I think.
Yeah.
Time commitment. And that's why that's how you get, hundreds of people into Firefly. I'd be like, don't worry about the 14 episodes. Just go watch the one movie. And if you like the movie, then you want to know more, then you can be sad with everybody else. So.
Man has a point.
Right.
Should we start closing this episode?
Probably.
It's that, or we're going 2 hours because we're close.
Yeah, we haven't done this many minutes on this podcast before, so that's a first.
Yay!
And we have a topic for next time. We'll do research and we'll argue.
We got almost 2.
See how well it goes and how much we can talk when we don't have a topic, though.
Right.
There's points for both. Yeah. All right.
Don't worry, we'll ramble in 3 weeks probably, or
we'll have
3 episodes.
Tangents. Yeah.
Tangents.
I can't wait until we talk about genres and then have to classify Star Wars and take over that entire episode. So
that'll happen.
Space fantasy.
No, it's horror, dude. Come on. Don't you know anything?
Didn't you see the space worm rock thing that tried to eat them? Come on.
It's a mystery because nobody knows who Luke's dad is. No, that's like real life. I don't. Oh, sorry.
Okay.